Howdy folks, Kel Kellogg here. It's time to talk trout fishing destinations, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorites, and you've probably never even heard about it. I'm going to talk about a trophy trout destination. It's not Eagle Lake or Elminor or Shasta or the Sacramento below Redding, and none of those places. I'm going to talk about the Middle Fork of the American River right outside of Auburn, California. I've been fishing it for going on 25 years, and it is full of huge trout. I've personally caught rainbows there to 27.5 inches. I know of rainbows that have gone up to 8 pounds being caught in the river. A buddy of mine caught a 9-pound brown a few years ago, and I've heard of browns up to 12 pounds being caught. So there are some monster fish on tap. Now you might be wondering, why have I never heard about this fishery? Well, there's a few reasons for that. One, the river hasn't been planted since the 60s. So all the folks that like to go out, and there's nothing wrong with it, but all the folks that like to go out and soak, the atomic pink glitter power bait and catch a limit of planted rainbows, those people aren't there because that stuff doesn't work. These are all wild fish, there's no planters, and they don't really respond to stuff like that. You gotta be on your toes to catch these fish. Second, the fly fishing crowd is pretty much non-existent. Now that seems strange if there's big wild trout on tap, but when you think about it, when you visit the river, the reason's pretty obvious. This river was gold mined extensively from the original strike in 1850 all the way up through the Great Depression. And when the first early miners with their gold pans were gone, then came big commercial dredging operations. And what they did, they cleaned out the channel. It's cleaned out down to bedrock in a lot of places, and there's pools that are 20 and 30 feet deep. Couple that deep water with the massive flows that go through the canyon a lot of the year, and fly guys can't wade. There's a lot of brush. They can't really cast. They can't really get down to where the fish are. So fly fishing opportunities are really limited on the Middle American, particularly in the stretch I like to fish where the trophy trout are, which is from Oxbow Reservoir down past the town of Auburn to the junction with Folsom Lake. That's the stretch where you're going to find your double-digit browns and your 25+ inch rainbows, and that water is just not conducive to the fly fishing crowd. The third factor that keeps people from fishing the river in a serious way is the ruggedness of the canyon. Now, road access is great. There's a ton of places to park and jump off into the canyon, and there are trails that go down to the river. Easy stuff. It's steep, very doable. Once you get off a trail though and start trying to walk along the river, you're going to be dealing with berry bushes, huge slabs of rock, poison oak, rattlesnakes. There's mountain lions down there, see tracks all the time, bears, pot grows. All of these, somewhat dangerous things exist in the canyon. It's not an easy place to access if you want to fish it seriously. So fishing pressure is exceedingly light. Now I was down there last week. I hiked the canyon for about 4 hours, and I had a real typical trip. I had a 17-inch brown, I had an 18-inch rainbow, and I had a rainbow about 6 pounds come up and check out one of my plugs without striking it. And that was just kind of a regular, common, nothing special about it trip. There's several ways to fish the river. If you're committed enough to get down there and actually hike along the stream and work it, there's a few things that'll work. You can catch planted rainbows and some jumbos just drifting worms. If I want some trout for the table and I want to stay close, I'll bounce down into the canyon, fish worms, and I'll pull out some nice wild pink meated rainbows. If you want to go after the big fish, I primarily fish with 2 types of lures. One is a dark colored spinner, and I use two different kinds from 2 different manufacturers. One is the old school yellow and black Panther Martin in 1/4 and 3/8 ounce sizes, and the other is either a black, all black Vibrick Rooster Tail, again in 1/4 or 3 ounce sizes, or this one right here. And I shouldn't even show you this one. This one is money. It's a black Vibrick Rooster Tail with a copper blade. A copper blade down in the American, and I don't know why, they like it way more than a chrome blade. They like it more than that black blade. I think it gives off just the right amount of flash to catch their eye, but it's not overwhelming. So that is my #1 spinner right there, the Vibric rooster tail with the copper blade in the big sizes. So, but overall, if I'm really hunting trophies, minnow plugs, minnow plugs, minnow plugs. The spinners, they'll catch small fish and big fish. The minnow plugs, you are hunting the monsters. They eat each other down there. They eat sculpins. They eat small pike minnows, stuff like that. That's how they earn their living. So #1 lure, the Countdown Yo-Zuri El Minnow in the medium size. That is money. And I fish it in the rainbow pattern almost exclusively. There's a ton of small rainbows in the river, and I figure that's what those big predatory trout eat a lot of the time, and they are very willing to strike that lure. If I want a smaller profile bait, I go with a pin minnow in the larger sizes, either in a chrome and black like that or with a rainbow pattern. That's pretty much all I fish. Now, when I'm fishing the minnow baits, I upsize my tackle. I fish them on 10-pound fluorocarbon line and a pretty fast action spinning rod. I cast them out and across, and I don't just crank them in, you know, nice and slow and steady. I cast them across, I let them sink in the current some, and I rip them and burn them, rip them, burn them, pause, rip it, burn it, pause, very aggressively. And that catches the attention of the big fish. Now, you get a lot more follows than you get strikes, but you go down there and spend 3 or 4 hours casting and ripping and hiking, you're gonna get some follows and you're gonna get some strikes, particularly if you make the effort to be there at first and last light, which is kind of a pain. You gotta hike out of the canyon or into the canyon, as the case may be, with a headlamp on. But if you're there in that prime hour of just before dark or just after sunrise, that's when those big fish are really turned on. That's when they're feeding, and they will jump all over that minnow plug. So you gotta be ready. It'll make your heart beat, that's for sure. So if you're looking for a challenge, if you're physically up to it, if you're mentally up to it, if you want to explore some rough, unforgiving country close to Sacramento, right outside Auburn, California, that can give up double-digit trout, the Middle American is the place for you. But take my warning, it's not for the faint of heart. But the rewards are just off the charts. So anyway, that's our destination for this week, the Middle Fork of the American River, one of the state's premier trophy trout fisheries. I'm Kel Kellogg. Thanks a lot.